Well, I just want to start off by saying I want to introduce myself. My name is Rachel McKinnon. I am PAVE's Outreach Director. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And thank you all so much for joining us today for this Lunch and Learn with the National Council on Disability. So we're going to be going through their report today, Not on the Radar, which focuses on college students with disabilities and how we can better support this specific population. NCD did a great report with a bunch of statistics, research behind college students with disabilities. So they're going to talk a little bit about their report today and then give us some incredible insights about what we can do as service providers to make our services more inclusive for survivors with disabilities. So that being said, I am going to hand it off to our COO, Mike, so that he can introduce himself as well.
Hey everyone, my name is Mike Huffin. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at PAVE. These Lunch and Learns are meant for the members of our Survivor Outreach Center. And obviously through the Survivor Outreach Center, our goal is to create one of the largest organizations that support survivors through all types of agencies out there. And so we appreciate everybody being here today. We're excited to have the National Council on Disability. We look to find organizations that are doing interesting, amazing work. And we thought it'd be great to have them here to discuss everything we can do as support organizations to help those with disabilities. So with that, Rachel, who's going to be doing the presentation? Is it Anna?
So Mike and Rachel, this is Andres. So yes, Anna is going to be doing the presentation itself. And I just want to make a few introductory comments. I just texted Anna to let her know that we have a new link. So hopefully she'll be on here in a couple minutes. But listen, I really want to thank you and the organization for having us, allowing us to discuss the seminal report that we issued back in 2018. It's titled Not on the Radar, Sexual Assault of College Students with Disabilities. Now, the we that I refer to is the National Council on Disability. In case you don't know us, we are an independent federal agency. We're charged with providing the President, Congress, and leaders of federal agencies with advice and counsel relating to policy matters affecting persons with disabilities in the country. I am Andres Gallegos. I'm the chairman of the council. I was recently designated to that position by President Biden on the afternoon of his inauguration. Now, according to the most recent census, there's just over 61.4 million persons in the United States that report having a disability. And so that's 1 out of every 4 persons. And for decades, though, disability was something that was kept in the shadows. And for a number of different reasons, we weren't viewed as a community. And as a result, we remained socially invisible. For instance, in 1964, when the Civil Rights Act was passed, the landmark civil rights law that in the United States that outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin, we were omitted. When the Civil Rights Act was amended in 1968, prohibiting discrimination concerning the sale, rental, or financing of housing based on race, religion, national origin, and sex, we were again invisible. So it took for the disability community to rise in protest, to take to the streets, to use tactics of nonviolent civil disobedience in order to obtain our own civil rights legislation, the Americans with Disabilities Act. Last July, we celebrated its 30th anniversary. Since then, we've made significant progress. However, today we have a significant number of challenges. We lag behind our non-disabled counterparts in economic, health, and judicial equality. As we reported in 2018, we lead our non-disabled counterparts in the prevalence of sexual assaults on college campuses. Our report cites the Association of American Universities 2015 study, which revealed that 18.4% of undergraduate female students without a disability were victims of sexual assault, whereas a staggering 31.6% of female undergraduates with a disability were victims of sexual assault, meaning 1 out of every 3 female students with a disability had been sexually assaulted during their time in college. Unconscionable. Despite having our own civil rights legislation prior to our report, We were omitted from reports and interventions to address sexual assaults on campus. We were even invisible in reports and studies commissioned by federal agencies and also the United States Department of Justice, the agency that has the principal enforcement responsibility for the Americans with Disabilities Act. Our report was just the beginning. We know there's still a lot of work to be done. In its 2020 revised report on the Campus Climate Survey on Sexual Assault and Misconduct, the Association of American Universities revealed that students who did not report any disability had the lowest rate, 9.4%, of non-consensual sexual contact by physical force or inability to consent. Those who reported a single disability had elevated rates. The highest rate, 26.3%, were for those reporting a chronic mental health condition, conditions like depression, PTSD, and anxiety disorder. And for those reporting 2 or more disabilities, they had a rate of 25%. So our report had called upon Congress and certain federal agencies to take a number of legislative and regulatory actions. While there was great enthusiasm and support for our recommendations, after our report was released, we lost a little bit of traction. Congress had introduced a couple of bills incorporating some of our legislative language, but they were not ultimately enacted. Now, before I turn it over to Anna, I want to reiterate that our work is not done. We are committed to continue to pursue the realization of many of our recommendations. We believe that we now have the right federal partners to get that done. So hopefully Anna is on, and if so, I want to formally introduce you to her. Anna Torres Davis is one of our attorney advisors, and Anna championed and led the council's development of our report. So Anna, if you are on, I turn it over to you. And I don't see that she is.
I'm on.
Beautiful.
But I don't, can you see me? Because I can see you.
I cannot see you at the moment, Anna.
But you can hear me, right?
I can, absolutely.
I can see you. You have shelves behind you.
Yes, ma'am. Anna, take it away.
Okay, great. I really appreciate it, Rachel and Andres. I'm so happy to be here to talk about NCD's sexual assault report. And I appreciate PAVE's efforts to get the word out on this issue. In NCD, in 2016, NCD recognized the growing body of research showing that students with disabilities were suffering a high rate of sexual assaults on college campuses. Sexual assault changes lives, as you know, leaving life-lasting impacts on survivors, and NCD made it a priority to conduct an examination of this issue. Can I ask if anybody can see me yet?
We can't see you, Anna, but if you click the, do you have like a start video button on the left, bottom left corner of your screen?
I don't, but I can see you now. Let me see. A start video button. I don't have any button, Rachel.
Are you
Okay, hold on. Let me see. Okay, can you see me now?
Looks like we have a black screen. Is there maybe like a protector in front of your camera by any chance?
Okay, hold on. It's shooting backwards though.
Oh, God.
Okay, guys, look, I'm just gonna. It's shooting what is on my computer screen. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna keep talking so that we don't lose any time. Okay. Rachel, if you want to put my picture up, that's fine, but I'm going to continue with the presentation.
Okay, that sounds.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rachel. I'm sorry about the technical problems. So there's a body of research going back for decades showing that women with disabilities suffer higher rates of intimate partner violence than women without disabilities. And during the past 17 years, researchers have examined sexual violence on college campuses against students with disabilities, all finding that female college students with disabilities experience sexual assault at higher rates than their peers without disabilities. The first large-scale study to get us statistics on the prevalence of such assaults was the 2015 Campus Climate Survey on Sexual Assault and Sexual Misconduct. More than 150,000 students at 27 universities participated in this survey, which is pretty amazing. It was not only the largest study on sexual assault and misconduct in the number of schools and students that participated, but the largest to include disability as a demographic. 31.6% of female undergraduates with disabilities participating in that study reported that they had experienced a sexual assault on campus. That is 1 in every 3 female students with a disability. And this is a reason for concern. This study gave us a number, a percentage, but it didn't tell us how students with disabilities were faring in regard to how colleges addressed their accessibility needs in sexual assault prevention education and services to those who suffered a sexual assault. Our research focus was on students who were deaf or hard of hearing, students who were blind or low vision, and students with mobility disabilities. We conducted our work through a federal lens, a federal legal lens, including the Clary Act. This is an incredibly important federal law, and it requires colleges to provide sexual assault prevention education and have policies and procedures in place to follow after an assault. Title IX, which requires colleges to publish grievance procedures on sexual assault, including how to file a complaint, how to investigate, and the disciplinary process. And all of this information is supposed to be on the Title IX website for each college. Section 504 of the Rehab Act, which prohibits disability discrimination by colleges that receive federal funds and requires them to provide equal opportunity for students to access their programs and services. And the Americans with Disabilities Act, which requires colleges to provide reasonable accommodations to students with disabilities. As part of our methodology, NCD interviewed 36 experts in sexual assault and higher education. We also interviewed higher education professionals, in colleges across the country, including Title IX coordinators. We also administered open-ended online questionnaires to students and college staff. Some of the questions we asked were, what are the college's policies and programs regarding sexual assault prevention and response? Are colleges complying with the ADA in Section 504 by ensuring that assault prevention education and post-assault services are accessible to students with physical and sensory disabilities? Were colleges complying with the ADA by providing reasonable accommodations so that students with disabilities can access support services after experiencing an assault? Are interpreting services or other disability-related supports readily available to students who are deaf or hard of hearing when making reports to campus law enforcement? What gaps or weaknesses exist in campus sexual assault services. In our campus disability services offices, Title IX offices, working with other campus resources like mental health services to ensure that students are getting the ongoing services they need after an assault, like mental health counseling. And what we found was troubling. We found that most of the colleges that participated indicated that the needs of students with disabilities were not considered in their sexual assault prevention efforts or in their policies and procedures for response after an assault. We found that colleges lacked policies and procedures to ensure disability-related supports are readily available after an assault, particularly when students need to communicate with first responders. We found that colleges were not informing students about accommodations that were available or providing contact information for students or staff to request accommodations. We found that sexual assault prevention and education programs weren't fully accessible to students with disabilities. For example, online training courses were not captioned. In-person trainings were sometimes held in buildings that weren't physically accessible. Advertisements for in-person education did not include contacts for reasonable accommodation requests. So when students that needed interpreters or captioning services or CART services needed those to participate in sexual assault prevention education, they weren't getting that information and they weren't able to make those requests. We also found that campus security personnel and other crisis response staff weren't trained in working with individuals with disabilities or in the accommodations that might be needed. We found that offices for disabled student services, mental health counseling, and Title IX were rarely working together to identify or to address the needs of students with disabilities. We found that college websites were not accessible to students with vision disabilities. So those students weren't able to access information on sexual assault resources. Their online forms were not screen reader accessible. And this included the Title IX office web pages. And this is an important finding because most college Title IX websites are the places that include information related to sexual assault services, such as the policies, the reporting options, and the resources for students on how to contact staff, including the Title IX coordinator. We found that one of the 27 Title IX offices that we interviewed said that they found that they had disability accommodations information on their websites. Now we thought, well, you know, this is interesting, and let's see what else we can do. Let's see what else we can find out. So we did a random check of 100 other college Title IX web pages. And we found that only 21 of those 100 websites had information on accommodations. And that's pretty stunning when you think about it. There are a lot of students that are potentially impacted by this. At the federal agency level, we found that students with disabilities are invisible in campus sexual assault research. For example, 3 Department of Justice offices conducting research on campus sexual assault fail to include disability as a demographic. This includes the Office on Violence Against Women, the Bureau of Justice Statistics, and the National Institute of Justice. And this includes recent research conducted after the academic research that had established that sexual assault on college campuses against students with disabilities was a growing problem nationwide. I think that this should concern all of us. Anybody that is interested, anybody that is concerned about the welfare of students with disabilities should be concerned that they are not included as a demographic at the federal level in federal research. And if any of you look at some of that research, look at the demographics that are included. It's pretty broad. It's pretty broad. So to have a group of people that has been so severely impacted left out of that really raises concerns, and it raises questions about why it's happening and where they're getting their information. One of the research reports that I reviewed for this report made very clear, and they were very proud that they had consulted with stakeholders, that they had had listening sessions nationwide. And where was the representation about people with disabilities in those conversations? Why weren't stakeholders, why weren't disability stakeholders included in those conversations? And if they were, why weren't their voices and their needs heard? NCD made recommendations to Congress, federal agencies, and colleges based on our findings. And there are too many to share with you today. So I'm going to focus on several key recommendations made to federal agencies and colleges. Like Andre says, we had a lot of traction on some of our legislative proposals, and I think that we will again. I think that we're going to raise these again, particularly under the Clary Act, because there's some room there for improvement on making sure that colleges inform students about their options for reporting. So action on these recommendations at the federal level would provide the data necessary to fully understand the scope of this problem, and it would help develop federal programs to address it. Action by colleges would help ensure that they are following their obligations under federal law and ensuring that students with disabilities are not left out in sexual assault prevention education and in post-assault support services. Rachel, am I still with you?
Yep, you're still with us.
Great. So with regard to federal agencies, our key recommendations include that the Department of Justice should publish a technical assistance document or guidance for colleges on their obligations to provide students with disabilities with the necessary obligations or necessary accommodations in the process of reporting sexual assault, of utilizing sexual assault support services, and in the institutional disciplinary process. Because remember, it's not only people with disabilities that suffer assaults. Sometimes people with disabilities are accused of assaulting others. So they also need accommodations in the disciplinary process. The Department of Justice Office on Violence Against Women should include information on disability, including best practices for communicating with students who are deaf or hard of hearing, in its trauma-informed training programs that they provide to school officials and campus enforcement. OVW also should require all colleges that receive federal funds under its program to reduce sexual assault to provide outreach and educational materials regarding sexual assault services in accessible formats. Anybody receiving federal funds has an obligation to provide these materials in accessible formats. That's clear under Section 504, that's clear under the ADA. And there is no reason why these materials should not be offered in those formats. OVW should also require researchers to include students with disabilities as a demographic whenever it funds research on sexual assault on college campuses. In addition, the Department of Justice Bureau of Justice Statistics should include students with disabilities as a demographic when conducting research on sexual assault on college campuses. You know, when we don't have this at the federal level, we are really missing an opportunity to inform the nation about the scope of this problem. Our key recommendations to colleges are to include students with disabilities as a demographic when they administer campus climate surveys on sexual assault. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with campus climate surveys, but under the Obama administration, they issued a report called Not Alone. If you have an opportunity to look at that, it's very interesting. And they encouraged all colleges and universities to administer college or campus climate surveys frequently to find out what was happening on campus regarding sexual assault. And they included a template of a survey. And unfortunately, that survey did not have students with disabilities as a demographic. So you have a lot of colleges that are lifting that template and using it, which is good, but they need to adapt it and include students with disabilities so that they gather the full picture of what's happening on campuses. We recommend that colleges create a working group between their Title IX, disability student services, and campus security to discuss how to accommodate students with disabilities who have suffered sexual assaults. And this would include a way for students to communicate with college staff after working hours. We recommend that colleges create crisis policies and procedures on how to provide sexual assault services to students with sensory disabilities, especially deaf or hard of hearing students, so that students receive assistance quickly. And I would like to note the improvement in technology since we published this report. At the time we published the report, we were really grappling with the fact that sometimes colleges were having trouble getting interpreters to students at any time of the day or night when they needed to report a sexual assault. But now, using technology like we're using today, even Google Meets has captioning technology built in. So it makes it a lot easier now for a student to talk with or communicate with a first responder simply by using their telephones. So I think that that's been a really great advancement, and hopefully that's going to be broadly used. We recommend that schools create formal agreements with community-based providers with the expertise to support survivors with disabilities when the college doesn't have those services available on campus. College campus mental health services are overwhelmed. That happens all over the country, and that's been known for several years now. So it's really important for colleges to have agreements with local community mental health providers or other types of health providers that maybe have more accessibility than the college has, or have more staff that can supplement college staff and support college students. We recommend that colleges ensure that sexual assault prevention education and all offices that offer support services are in physically accessible buildings. And we recommend that Title IX pages, web pages, their online forms, and their webinars are screen reader accessible. And I don't know how many of you are aware that PDFs are often inaccessible to people that have vision disabilities. At NCD, if you visit our website, we make our reports available in Word. And some people say, why would you make your reports accessible in Word? People can manipulate those documents. We do it because they're screen reader accessible. We do it because it's the right thing to do, and it provides information to everybody. So that's something to consider, and we make sure that our PDFs are also screen reader accessible, and it's a simple thing to do. And that information on how to do that is available online for those of you who are interested in that. We also recommend that when in-person trainings resume on campuses after COVID-19 abates, to ensure that the advertisements for those trainings include how students can request accommodations like interpreters, and to ensure that the person that receives those requests understands accommodations, for one, and is responsive to those requests, for two. And I'll stop there so that we have time for questions and discussion. I do encourage you to review the report and to find any areas within there where your organization might be able to make a difference, whether that's writing to federal agencies and asking for action on specific issues, or in working with your universities to implement some of these recommendations. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anna, for going through the report and all of your findings, and for your research. This is such an important topic area to be talking about survivors with disabilities and how we can make our services more inclusive. I'd love to hear, are there any questions for NCD or for Anna about the report, about the presentation, or about NCD in general? Feel free to just pop those in the chat, or even unmute yourself and ask verbally as well. And if not, I just want to share with you real quick. So this was one of our third Lunch and Learns, but if anyone in the call would like to present a Lunch and Learn in the future, feel free to email me at rachel@pavingtheway.net, because this option is available for all of our service providers in our network to be able to talk about topics that you specialize on in terms of survivor support and building inclusive communities. So that's kind of, all we have for today. It is PAVE's 20-year anniversary as well, so I just wanted to let everyone know about that. We are doing a couple of campaigns throughout the month, and we'll be doing a campaign starting on the 22nd for Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. So stay tuned for that as well. Anna, do you have any closing comments that you wanted to make?
No, I don't. I just want to say thank you again for the interest in this topic. We really appreciate you, Rachel, and the team at PAVE, and I hope that we can continue to collaborate in the future.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Anna, for your presentation, for being here today. Thank you, everyone from NCD, for your constant support and for putting on our third Lunch and Learn series. And thank you to all of our partners for attending the presentation today. We are so grateful for each and every one of you, and we look forward to working with all of you again in the future.
Great. Thank you, everybody.